that have a future expiration date, if you can forward those over with the contract limits, we can get those price books into Salesforce so that when that client reaches out in Q2 sometime, your price book is ready to go for your estimate.
I have a quick question. This is kind of in regards to retroactive. So kind of from November 1 forward, we're wanting to capture, you know, NGI's activity, projects, proposals. And the proposals, I think for the most part, I can double check, are probably 90% in there. And again, now you've kind of showed me the workaround for the projects. I would still be going retroactive back to November 1 and entering any new projects that were just set up as projects where we didn't have a proposal necessarily. Like basically in the first week, that first week of November, you know, NGI obviously is setting up projects because they're, you know, still operating, you know, on their day-to-day. Is that how we would capture them in Salesforce then, is basically put them in as qualifications based and then just enter them as, I mean.
My understanding is those were manually set up in Geotech already, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so to capture them as activity, I mean, we're not really moving forward, we're looking at activity as of January 1, but to capture them in Salesforce, you would want to make sure that you also manually edit the P number to be whatever it is existing in Geotech, because we want them to line up 1-to-1. So before you kind of promote it to get the P number, you don't want to, it's going to give you a 23 number for this year. So you want to first, before you promote it, manually put in the Geotech number. Okay. And then when you promote it, it'll just maintain that number. And then when you promote it to awarded, it will again maintain that numbering.
Okay, so that is a field that as long as I keep it, as long as I don't have the system automate it to proposal and automate a P number, I'm able to kind of free type that P number.
Give me a call if you cannot. I believe your permission set does, but if it doesn't, I can manipulate your permission set to allow you to do that, because that's something that you're going to be doing.
Okay, and then I also have a question because I'm just very unfamiliar with Geotech for the most part, just because I haven't really used it. Melinda has been setting them up in Geotech after I get the account and the contact into Salesforce. Is there a pretty quick and easy way for her to run a report out of Geotech to let me know the list of the projects that have been set up, what P number was assigned manually, so that I can just kind of do data entry on the Salesforce side?
Maybe. I'm not really a Geotech person myself. I'm learning more on the fly now. But I didn't really have reporting capabilities until this week, so maybe.
For at least the first 30 days, really.
I feel like there should be. I wouldn't know how to do it, so I would reach out to Melinda.
Okay, because I think for those first 30 days, we weren't really so much worried about capturing the projects with the P number and all that. We were getting accounts, contacts, and then she was manually doing Geotech. So if I'm going to go retroactive, I was hoping that there'd just be a report sheet.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is. I mean, there's fields there. You click on them and then you can run a report based off of the fields that you want to see. So I imagine that she'd be able to filter that out.
Okay, I will coordinate with her on that one then. Thank you. Just make a note here.
Yeah, right. I was like, no, like absolutely no clue.
And then I know we touched again on the price books, kind of the next step. And I know that obviously we have till end of Q1, but here we are almost 2 weeks into January.
Yeah, if you can send over those price books as soon as possible, wherever, I don't know if they're saved in a particular folder or area, or if they're piecemeal, you have to kind of piecemeal them together because they're a bunch of different places. But if you could send those over ASAP so we can get them into the right hands to start updating those and getting those into Salesforce. I mean, the goal is to have them in there well before Q2. We don't want them in there April 1st. We want them in there, well before that, so that April 1st, we've already had a chance to sort of maybe even run a couple tests to make sure that everything is looking the way that they should and all that good stuff.
And this is kind of more in regards to any of those on-calls that maybe weren't already sent, those kind of rates, locked-in rates. Because I do believe the price books have been being worked on for some time, so this would be in case there's any additional, I guess, rates that we have for a master services or an on-call. Essentially, I know that Northwest Geotech has sent if a lot, if not all of their price books. I guess I should ask Northwest Geotech, do you all feel that there's going to be additional price books, I mean, for those on-calls, or maybe how many we would think we would have?
Well, there's a brand new one for ODOT. We just got approved rates. They're going to allow us to continue to use our negotiated rates until, well, they told me on the phone June, but when I got the information, it's actually through August 15th. So
okay.
That gives us some time for RMA to establish their overhead rates. And maybe I'll just throw it out there. Does anybody know if there's been a recent Caltrans review? If there's anything like that for any Caltrans work, they would, or ODOT would accept that, and then it would just be a desk audit. So it'd be a lot easier process if you've gone through something, say, in the last year or so.
Let me see, you're on mute.
Well, it turns out we have, 8.5 months. And then it actually, if for some reason we didn't have approved audited rates by then, it actually, the letter gives us up to a year. But the intent is they would like to get this done, by the second quarter. But hey, it isn't like, what they would expect at that point would be an internal audit of 2022. And they would then, it would go to their team, and they have a special team that evaluates that. But if there happened to be already, say, for year 2021, an audit or a review, or, there's different levels that Caltrans might have done, they will accept that, and it would be a lot easier process. Otherwise, it'd need to be for the calendar year 2022.
Are they going to be able to exclude Western technology in that process or not?
I think we don't want to. I don't think we want to even bring that up, Alan, because the way that it's set up right now is they understand that RMA Group is a California company. And I guess it depends on what got audited on if they have a recent Caltrans that included Western, maybe, but otherwise I think we would be overcomplicating it. But in the end, I mean, they can Google and see, all the company, what the company structure is. And but so far, I think if you just had an internal audit of recent audit of the California operation, I think that would do it, because they see it as, okay, it's a California corporation that owns this entity here now. But that's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, there's just such a huge difference in multiplier between a company like Western Technologies and a company like RMA. And, our ODOT work is 95% engineering work and not necessarily a materials testing contract.
And I do remember Ed saying they had a really low multiplier that, and you know, and I believe he was talking about the California.
Yeah, that'd be unfortunate, but
well, but it depends on what does that mean as far as a low multiplier. But yeah, I mean we'd hate to be going backwards in rates that they have allowed and we've negotiated with them. So
yeah, usually it's the materials testing firms that have the low multiplier.
Yeah.
So it may be that that's what got included. Yeah.
I would assume it's all wrapped into, I mean, you can have overhead rates that are different for different pieces of your operation, but that's what we don't know. None of us know here, I guess, today is how they're doing it with Caltrans and I think that's the main, you know, agency that ODOT would be looking at any reciprocity on.
Yeah, if there's any way to exclude that materials testing, we want to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's the reason why we just were able to keep from having to do, we were able to do the negotiated billing rates because first of all, our ODOT work was under $1 million. That's one of the criteria. Automatically you go over $1 million, then you're with audited rates. But they're really the only ones we have to worry about. And you're right, Alan. I mean, it's more the engineering operation there at RMA that I think we want to get a audited rate on. Does that make sense to everybody? I mean, okay. Hey, Brett,
Okay,
can you upload that new ODOT fee schedule into the system when you get a chance?
Okay, I'll email it to Molly.
Okay.
So then I guess to piggyback on that, I know that we've talked about this a couple times, but I assume that the templates are still kind of being gathered and reviewed. What's that look, Alan? That's not promising.
I think our discussion on that has been that really on the geotechnical proposals, they're all one-off. We don't really have any necessarily a format. Environmental, a little different for the phase ones. There, Steve has a pretty good format. He could upload that. And then Mike's got a few different ones for lab and field, and those he hasn't had a chance to get to. When we lost one of our inspectors here a week ago, really put a crunch on the schedule and availability. So he's having to fill in, and then on top of that, there's some night work that's kind of getting shared around so that you know, it doesn't burn any one person out that he's helping with. So I know he's got it on the list, but I would say those are the ones. There was a discussion also that, you know, maybe it would help if we saw some of the RMA templates for Geotech.
I had sent, I think the one I sent over was a materials testing one, but I went ahead and just pulled up one here if y'all can see my screen. All of these things inside of these fancy little carrots, don't worry about those. Those are what we are calling like call codes. That's what takes this Word document and literally just calls and pulls in that particular information from Salesforce and drops it here. So for our geotechnical one, it's very different than how we process our materials testing. I imagine your environmental will be the same. And the reason is that for our geotechnical, there is a bit more narrative here where we have bulleted points where we talk about, you know, the different stages and steps to get to the endpoint of a geotechnical investigation report. So we have office research, some bullets of what's included underneath that task. We have a field investigation, which again, more bullets that are included underneath that task, lab testing, and then the final analysis and report prep, and then just some bullets that create that step. After that, we have a table here that's called in from Salesforce that drops in the information. So that is there. And then we just have some sort of standard language closures. We give a couple of different options. Again, any user can use either of these or completely create their own. And then some standard signature lines. We have the rate sheet here. A lot of the times our geotechnical investigation proposals, they will remove this, but we have it there because it's easier to have there and remove it than not have it there and try to figure out how to get it in. So we have it there. It can be removed if we are not going to show the breakdown, because we kind of build them on like more of a lump sum per task. And then a fee schedule. Again, it's easier to have it here and then delete the fee schedule rather than not have it there at all and have to figure out how to get one in there that's the correct rates that you have in Salesforce. And then lastly, just some general terms and conditions. We have to annually go through and update for any sort of increases. Our, prevailing wage increases are now going up at 5%. So the rates are all good through the following June 30th of the following year. And that's really all we need. So our geotechnical and the ESAs that we do, and I imagine all of your environmental ones, are likely going to be very technical. And so we will prep it more like you see here, where we have the text for the geotechnical engineering analysis and report prep sitting in this Word document already. Whereas with our standard materials testing type templates, let me pull that up, a standard inspection lab field type proposal looks a bit different. And I will show you that here. Again, I'm showing you what the templates look like. This is not what I'm expecting to come from you. I just want you to send me how you propose, and then I can create the template based around that. So I will know where this needs to be a call code that pulls in from Salesforce, and I will know that code. For lack of a better word, it's not really a code, but I will know how to code those in here to drop the information where we want the information. So for our standard lab and field testing technician inspection proposal, it looks a little bit different. So we have a general understanding, and what we do is we have highlighted text where we like to call this like the 80-90% complete proposal that Salesforce will spit out for you. And then we ask that you take it to the finish line for the last 10 to 15%. So the highlighted portions here are what we're asking you to kind of take a few minutes and really customize this to your client to make it a bit more personable. Talk about any plans or specs that you were sent and you maybe reviewed, any phone conversations or whatever that you all had. But really anything that can drive home that more personal connection, so it doesn't just look like we ran this through a proposal mill. So that's what the highlighted text is there for some elaboration on the estimator's part. And then as you can see here, instead of having the actual scope of work detailed out, so if we're doing pool testing and will include A, B, C, D, E, F, G, we don't have it listed out here. We have that pulling in from Salesforce. So in Salesforce, what you'll do in all instances is you will say, I'm going to build an estimate for pool testing. You'll put in your quantities. It looks kind of like an Excel sheet where you have your rate, you put in the quantities, it auto sums that for you and gives you a subtotal and then a total, a running total of all the scopes. So if you're doing pool testing and concrete testing, you'll pull in those scopes in Salesforce, update the quantities underneath each of those scopes, and then that information will drop here. So the scope of work of our pool testing will include, our concrete testing will include, will drop right in here. And then in the same fashion, the kind of estimate worksheet will drop in here. So this will expand based off of the amount of the amount of scopes that you all put into Salesforce. And then the same kind of standard language, rounding out the signature lines. We do more often than not include the actual breakdown of units and rates in the field testing and inspection proposal. So again, that's here. But if you didn't need it, you could always delete it. Or we cannot include it. If you know that 100% of the time we never use that, we don't have to have it there. And then lastly, our fee schedule. This will call in all of the rates. So this ends up being, I want to say, 8 pages of rates for RMA group. And then finalizing everything with the terms and conditions. So
is that just one page, or is there some more terms and conditions there?
Our terms and conditions are a single page. We do have, like, for example, site scan, where we have terms and conditions that include our exclusions and limitations. So that does expand. But if you have a terms and conditions page that is multiple pages long on each of your jobs, I mean, this is just what RMA does. Yours will likely look different. I just need to know how you all put that together. What are the terms and conditions? If there are any exceptions or exclusions or deviations, I need to know what those are so I can include that in the template and they will show up on every single one.
Yeah, those don't change very much on our end. I mean, we do have, it's a couple, 2-3 pages.
Okay.
And of course, these are just for the ones that we do that don't require a subcontract from a prime or something like that. But
sure.
Yeah, so I spoke to Ed about that originally. I was kind of curious, and he said, yeah, we don't have a lot of terms and conditions typically, but you guys need to do what you need to do for your area. So we should get those off to Molly.
Yeah, and then what the first part of the exercise is, let's get everything there. At least what we found with RMA Group and Geoscience when we were pulling theirs together and creating the templates for theirs is, you had John in, this office who used his template, his own kind of variation of the template. And then you had, Scott over here who had a completely different template that looked different, but they were essentially the same thing, but they just looked very different. We kind of will collect them all and then kind of sift through them and say, well, these are the same thing. They have the same information. We need to standardize it and make it one. So that'll be kind of the second part. And then we'll go through and create the templates for them, where I'll drop in these little codes and say, okay, we're going to pull this information from Salesforce and drop it here. Like you can see here, you can create overtime options. Do you want to bill overtime at 1.5? Do you want to bill overtime at 1.35, 2.15, whatever you want to bill overtime at? The client won't see that, but it'll show here. All of that stuff, that's all built in Salesforce.
And a few weeks
Alan,
back,
what did you think of the geotechnical one? It looked like if nothing else, it's kind of a good template to review.
Yeah, and like I said, the one I would say downfall of Salesforce and Conga, which gets you this Word document, is it just drops plain text. So where you see here that we have bullets and indents, Salesforce and Conga, they don't spit out formatting. It just spits out plain text. So because of that, with our more technical proposals like Geotech and ESAs, we have to have them like this, where they're already in there, versus pulling in those scopes from Salesforce, because we can't maintain that formatting and bulleting and all that good stuff. So
I was going to mention that.
For the more technical ones, because in our experience, what we're finding is that it is the more technical proposals, like the environmental work, like the geotechnical investigation stuff, where that formatting really does make a difference. It's really hard to take all of these bullets and make it into a easily read, simplified paragraph per se, because we do that a lot with the materials testing. We just say this will include, this will exclude, plain and simple. But when you get into the more technical scopes, it is better to do it this way. And then, if it's not going to include soil infiltration, you just delete it. versus trying to reformat everything that drops in as plain text from Salesforce.
Yeah,
A few weeks
I don't,
back,
I
I had
don't,
sent an example that has all of the fields kind of filled in from geoscience. So I just sent that again, just as an example of the ones Stephanie has are very, like, none of the fields are filled in. It's the, raw
Template.
template. And then the example I sent is one that was actually a geoscience. So you can see how once those fields are populated and dropped in, what sort of more of a final product would look like, if that's helpful. I don't know if people saw that when I sent it in December, but I just sent it again, so maybe it'll be helpful. I don't know.
I'm saying I might have one from some testing that I was doing.
So the other thing that comes to mind on this is, Steve, are we finalizing the letterhead in the second page? I know we had, Brett and I had looked at it, and I think Mike looked at it and had some suggestions. But once we get up and running in this system, we're going to need a, kind of something a little different than the RMA Geoscience logo at the top and so forth. Okay.
That likely happened while I was out. I haven't seen any letterhead. They may exist. I haven't seen them. But yeah, obviously, yeah, anything that is branded toward what you're seeing on screen right now, which is branded for geoscience, would be rebranded with the Northwest Geotech logo that says an RMA company. The footers would obviously be your footers. It would all change out, but the guts, I guess you can call it, would be something close-ish to what you see here. Again, it will deviate where it needs to deviate, but as you can see here, this is an example of what the field inspection and testing template looks like once you populate the information in Salesforce and then utilize Conga to spit out the Word document. This is essentially what you get. So where you were seeing the code, I will call it, in the original document of the proposal number would drop here, the date, the address and all that good stuff. The actual information drops in here. The project understanding is still highlighted because that's where we're asking you to, put your own spin on things so it looks more customized. But as far as the scope of work now has what we demoed out here, which was a post-installed anchor scope. All of this is pulling from Salesforce. In the estimate I selected the post-installed anchors scope as well as the post-tension concrete slabs scope, and then reinforced masonry. And then it spits out the text and the scope directly from Salesforce. And then you can go through here, and if there are specific limitations for this particular scope based off of this job, what you get is a Word document. So, limitations include, whatever your limitations are going to be. You can add in or omit anything that drops in here. But the idea is we're going to give you 85, 90% of what you would need, and then you can go in and fine tune it to take it that final 10 to 15%. For the estimate, instead of seeing that wonky text, what you see is the post-installed anchors, lump sum amount for just what that scope is, as well as the other two scopes, totaling out to $10,000. And then after the signature line, we will break out each of those scopes individually, because for our clients, at least, we are required to show, or would like to show, the quantities and units and subtotal of everything, in addition to the overall $10,000 amount. Each of these come in on its own page, but again, you have a Word document. You can delete the page break there and have 2 to a page or 3 to a page if they will fit. you can edit as you need. All we ask is that anytime you're editing, you do not edit anything related to numbers. So don't edit the quantities, don't edit the rates, because those do not, once it's spit into Word, the connection between Salesforce is done. So if you change something here, it's not changing and updating Salesforce. Salesforce is still what is right here. So as long as you're not updating any rates or quantities or numbers per se, you can edit the text as much as you need to and desire. But yeah, here's how the fee schedule will roll in. Now, obviously, this would be your fee schedule, your rates, your items, and then your terms and conditions. This was kind of standard text that was there. And again, if you needed to edit anything for a particular job, say, oh, this one we're going to have the rates good till 2025 because we have to have it good for the duration of the contract, and construction will end in 2025. You can either update it manually to rates are valid through 2025, or completely remove that and rates are valid through the term of the contract, or the term of the term of the contract till the construction is built. Whatever you actually need can all be updated here. It just rolls into part of the contract. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this information that we're looking at, especially the special inspection format, you know, is going to be helpful with Mike. But I agree. I mean, this can get complicated, and you know, it'll be a slower transition. I think that makes sense.
And my understanding, based off of conversations that I've had with Ed, is that a good portion of the scopes of work that you all do when it comes to materials testing and inspection already live in Salesforce, because we do them at group also. But it is those things like, I think you mentioned Steve Day is the guy who does the environmental work. That obviously we don't have, so I'll have to work with Steve to create those scopes so that they can be selected in the same way that post-installed anchors was able to be selected as the scope of work for this particular proposal and on screen. I'll have to work with Steve to create those. And I mean, it's fairly simple. I just say, hey, what are the scopes? How do you put this together? He tells me. I kind of say, okay, great, give me the narrative about it, and just plug them in there. So
any of these templates you can send over would be very helpful too, in us, you know, getting our templates in shape. So if you can, I don't know, it sounds like you do about everything that we do here, and
yeah, I think this is the actual geoscience template
templates
that I sent Molly. So this one she just resent to you all. If it's not this exact one, it's literally one that looks nearly identical to this. But I can go ahead and send over a Geotech one so that you can see how that is, knowing that if anything that has those bullets like that, we're not pulling the text from Salesforce. It's just, I would say, hard coded in there into that Word doc.
I assume you have a phase 1 and phase 2 environmental format? I
do, yeah.
Okay, if you can send those over, that'd be great. Get them to Steve and myself, and
yeah. I'm just trying to see if I have one from recent. It looks like I likely don't. We do a lot more inspection work, so I have a ton of those. I can go ahead and run one that has that in there. Okay. All I would say is don't pay attention. I'm just going to drop random scopes in just so that I can get a number to populate, but it's obviously like I may pull a post-installed anchor scope and send it over, but it'll be in the geotechnical investigation template, but all you'll see is the geotechnical and ESA 1 and 2 text. Yeah.
I was going to ask Brett too. Brett, didn't we leave it as that we were pretty satisfied with the letterheads, except for one, there was one exception?
There were a couple.
A couple, okay.
I haven't seen anything back yet, so Steve, if you could follow up and
Just to kind of show you how quickly this runs, I can pull this out right now. Obviously, this was done for a completely different scope of work, but just to show you how it'll pull the proposal, you would simply select from a list of templates. We have dozens here, so you just go through those. They're all alphabetized, starting with the company name. So if I do like RMA, it'll filter out those. I'm going to go to, see, there's phase, we have a phase 1. We don't have phase 2, sorry. But I will send you phase 1. So I'm going to pick the geotechnical investigation, merge that. And all this is doing at the merging step is taking the data that we put into Salesforce and dropping in those items into the Word document. And then it spits out my Word file here. Let me go ahead and get that opened. Yeah, this is it. So all this text is sitting here as is. The only thing that's pulling in from Salesforce is obviously the name and of the project and the client. This obviously it's a random scope. It's a diving scope, but it's going to pull in that amount, kind of lump sum amount. The worksheets, which we can remove if needed. And then the price book that we were working on for this one, this test that I did was a very short price book. So it's only a page. And then some general terms and conditions that are static. That's just sitting there. So I'll send you this one, and then I'll also run another one for the phase 1 and send you that one also.
Yeah,
Just so you can see the language. If your language differs from ours, just give me your language.
Yeah, I was curious on that, on the section on liability in there. I don't know if you can pop back to that.
Yeah, that's all standard RMA language for liability. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. It would just be whatever your terms and conditions would be. What was that on the last page? You saw it?
Oh, right there, back. No, it was in the middle there of the. Yeah, professional insurance.
Yeah, and on some templates for other companies like Western Technologies, I don't believe has any sort of professional insurance kind of information detailed. I don't believe SiteScan has any insurance. I know CSI does not have any insurance. So this is just an RMA practice where they put that in there. If it's not something that you all typically do, we don't do it.
Yeah, we have a limited liability section typically in our contracts.
Okay, then I can go ahead and just put whatever you put on yours and replace it there. This one is our ESA phase 1. It's put together similar to how the geotechnical is, where all this information here is just sitting there. It's not pulling. All the scope rather is not pulling. We have highlighted text, that stuff that will need to be edited on a case-by-case basis. But other than that, site recon, interviews, data evaluation, report prep, chem testing, and then we just have some additional information. But yeah, that's, I guess what you would be looking at is the scope breakdowns of, are any of these applicable, or ours isn't like this at all, use this instead, and then I can use yours. But I'll go ahead and send everybody these also right now.
Yeah, ours are very basic compared to that one for like our phase 1. You know,
Okay, yeah, so if yours are,
we list all our qualifications, but I mean, if we were going after, you know, an RFP or something, that'd be a little different. But that's going to take expanding that department.
yeah,
right
so
now, Eve is small.
with respect to the RFP, these ones are mainly, we call these our kind of bread and butter proposals. These are the ones that are put together where the client is just requesting the scope and the fee. If we have an official RFP scenario where the client has released a request for proposal, it's requiring additional, I think we may have worked on this with you all for something, I forget what the client was, but the client's requesting resumes, similar projects, give us your detailed quals and all that good stuff. That's done as an externally prepared proposal where marketing gets involved and puts that together. These are just marketing uninvolved stuff that you all do day to day where the client calls, hey, send me a proposal for XYZ. Here's some plans and specs. I don't need the fluff of the resumes and similar projects and, you know, the date you were established and all of that stuff. Just give me bare bones. That's what these are for. Anything in addition to that will be done in a completely different way. These are just the templates for that in and out type of proposal that you would put together.
Alan, you're on mute. I don't know if you're talking to us or on the phone.
Yep. Yeah, I was, and maybe we can handle this offline, but I was curious about the professional liability and whatnot, whether we're under their umbrella or we're maintaining ours or how that's.
Yeah, we'll just continue in our fashion is what Ed wants.
Okay. So our insurance company that we've worked for, because I've been setting up.
I see what you're saying. No, I mean, it's different insurance companies. But I mean, that only, you know, in a public contract, we'll have to list that, and, you know, they'll ask for those certificates of insurance. But you know, in our standard proposals, Alan, we'll just keep sending them out with our terms and conditions with a limited liability, and we're not going to state what our insurance limits are unless we're asked to do so or ask for a COI.
Yeah, most of mine do.
What's that, Alan?
Oh, I just said most of mine have all that already established, what they demand, you know, what they.
Right.
Because when they issue the RFP, they give you that sample contract, say speak now and forever hold your peace.
I mean, you've been giving them the RMA COIs, right?
Once, yeah.
Okay, well, we have them. So.
Yep, I just saw the, you know, the typical language that was in there that said, our insurance company doesn't allow us to additional insured, which of course all the municipalities require. So I'm
No, that's
just
just for professional liability, Alan. That was just for professional.
Okay, so
it wasn't for right. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a correct statement.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, they want the additional insured quite often, if not always.
Okay, that's on the, that's not on professional. Okay.
Well, we have to ask for that certificate, right, Brett? For a new client, we asked for that certificate with whatever language that they require. You know, all the subrogation language, all of that.
We're talking about our general conditions. That's
something different.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I mean, I realize in respect to everyone's time, I mean, do we all have any other questions for Stephanie regarding Salesforce or any of that? I know that she's probably got other stuff to do. So if we're kind of done on that topic for now, If you all want to stay on, I've still got a couple agenda items that I would like to go over, and kind of in regards to, I think we've touched on a lot of it. So I guess at this point, does anyone have any other Salesforce or template or price book questions for Stephanie?
Awesome. So just to kind of recap, if you all could, if you haven't already, go in and verify your account just to verify that you're able to get into Salesforce and log in. And then from here on out, if you can just start entering in your opportunities as well as any leads. And we determine leads as opportunities that have a future due date. So if they're due, you know, anytime from here on out, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 14 months. If you can enter those into Salesforce, we will be having our first meeting on the 1st, which is a Wednesday. And in that meeting, we will review your activity to date, which is any proposal that you've sent out, as well as your pipeline. So any proposals that we have, large and small, coming down the pipe. And we want you to throw everything in there, whether it's a small job that you think we may possibly have an opportunity, or a giant job where it's like we are actively doing some business development and meeting with contractors so that we can get on multiple teams so that we can be a part of this giant mega project. We want to see everything in there. So if you can go ahead and start entering all that in, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Yeah, my phone number is at the bottom of my signature line, so give me a call whenever you need to, or email.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Stephanie.
everybody. Talk to you soon.
See ya.
Nice meeting you. Bye-bye.
So again, I want to respect everyone's time. I realize we've gone well over the hour. We're looking at hour and 20 minutes. Do you all have a little more time, or do you guys need to get going on your days? Okay, so the one thing I just wanted to show you all really quick, now that we've kind of talked about Salesforce till we're all kind of blue in the face, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So maybe screen 2. Okay, so this is a report that Stephanie, actually, I guess, can you see my screen? Okay, so this is and I just named it Pacific Northwest Missing Information Report. This will kind of get additional tweaks as we go. As you can see, there's 13 opportunities in here that are in the proposal sent stage. Those are the ones that were either existing in the folder since November 1 or have been sent and I've been copied. If I'm missing a couple, I'm going to go back. Like I said, I'm still playing catch up, make sure that any that came through, you know, right before I left or while I was gone, get in here too. Again, Salesforce is sort of a learning curve for all of us. So I'm going to go back and make sure these all get P numbers. There's like, for instance, this one, this O'Brien parking garage, I know that that's actually an awarded project, but we were having that snag, converting it to awarded. So I'll get that straightened out and make sure that this P number matches what's in Geotech. So this is just going to basically show, as it moves on, this is going to show all of proposals that have gone out for the Pacific Northwest region, basically any of the Portland departments. As you can see, it's got the due date, opportunity name, it'll have amount, description, who the client is, who our contact with that client is, and then their email and phone number if it's been provided or if we have it. This essentially is going to be, rather than sending separate spreadsheets or a bunch of emails back and forth, this is something that I'd like to start working off of and that all of you can access as far as see anytime you want to look in here. Again, it's still a work in progress, but it's getting close. As you can see, these two have kind of dummy phone numbers. It was a field that I don't know if it's required, but I was told to fill it in if I can. So what I'd like to do is, like I said, work off of this as far as any information that's missing. So if we could find an email for this contact, that would be great. essentially what happens is when these proposals sent get converted to awarded or rejected or canceled, if they move to the awarded stage, these are going to become required fields. So they don't not the description. They don't necessarily need to be filled in right now, but I just wanted to give you all access to a visual where you can see exactly, okay, we need to try and find an email here. We're going to need actual phone numbers here. If we're not sure who the client is yet, it will show the information we're missing so that we can start filling in those gaps. I think it's also a good visual for as you all start using Salesforce to kind of see what the information looks like out of Salesforce. So once you all have access to log in, I'll just show you really quick from the home screen. There's a reports drop down. You click on reports. The drop down is going to show you your most recently viewed. So if you haven't viewed this report yet, you're going to want to go directly into reports. It's called the Pacific Northwest Missing Information Report. And it's just a couple clicks away. And then you can, what I'd like for this to be is a basis for a proposal follow-up system where we can see how many, I guess, outstanding proposals we have. You know, this was sent, it looks like in April. I don't know if that's actually been, if that was kind of just an original scope and then they asked for an update. But again, just kind of a visual of what information we need, why we need it, how it's going to come out of Salesforce, and just kind of start getting us in the habit of working out of Salesforce instead of having, you know, separate Excel spreadsheets, things like that. And again, then we'll also know, hey, we've got 13 outstanding proposals. You know, on our meetings, we can do any updates, and it will just be a quick reference to see what we're missing and what we need to follow up on. If that all makes sense. Again, right now we only have, what's that? Right. I would say all of this is editable. If I don't have the permissions, I can always escalate it up to Stephanie. We can get that fine-tuned. It's going to take some practice. This description, Steve and I were kind of playing with a way to indicate what information is needed. Obviously, this number, I just made that up. But I didn't see an actual dollar amount on this project when it came over. So again, just to kind of show the fields that will need filled in. This is, again, not required until the awarded stage. However, as Steve just mentioned, as a good way of showing our backlog, what we're proposing on and kind of what we have coming, it's very helpful if we can fill in as much of this as possible, even if it's an educated guess. So for this one, and then this is kind of another thing I want to play with, and I think what I'm going to do is see if we can add some columns here for client manager and project manager. At this point, all of them have been going in under myself and Steve just because we didn't have you all as options because you weren't in the systems yet. Now that you've got your logins, once you verify your account and get in there, I can start selecting the appropriate, or I guess the more accurate client manager and project manager. So that's probably two fields that are fields, columns that I will add to this report just to show, hey, we need to know who the project manager is. We need to know who the client manager is. And that's going to tie into some other business development, marketing type things as far as that goes. But we do want to kind of start getting in that habit for now, I will probably just reach out and ask if I don't know that information or have that information. But that is, again, two fields that we're also going to want to focus on to make sure that we're capturing. Because essentially, if you boil it down, if you're listed, you're getting kind of credit for the activity. So we just want to make sure that, again, it's being captured accurately, and that people are kind of, for lack of a better term, getting credit for the work they're doing. So this is just, again, kind of a visual. It's still a work in progress, but this is something Steve and I decided, rather than having a separate system, it would be good to start working out of Salesforce. And again, if you have any questions on this or where to find it, obviously reach out, let me know. Because again, this is going to be a basis for our follow-up system, which I'm not going to go into that this meeting, because I think for now we're still kind of getting everyone in Salesforce. But that is something that I want to work with all of you, kind of discuss what you currently do for proposal follow-up or what that system looks like, and maybe see if we can establish a good process and system so that, at least every 2 weeks we're kind of updating that information.
Hey, Steve, I didn't get that list that you sent.
I'm pretty sure. Let me double check. My inbox is kind of a mess right now. Yeah, so it looks like it came through my time about 3:30, so probably about 2:30. There was a client list. It just came to myself and Brett.
I didn't get it. Can you resend that, please?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, it does. I've noticed it does that. If you haven't selected their Northwest Geotech one, it'll convert or revert to the RMA.
Okay, thanks.
No, the only thing, and again, thank you all for your patience with my email and calendars. What I would like to do, since we're going to start having kind of a bigger business development meeting with Ed and Tim and Stephanie in this group once a month, rather than bombard people with meetings, that meeting is going to be, I believe, the first Wednesday of each month. So what I'd like to do is the third Wednesday of each month, have kind of this smaller meeting, and then eliminate the bi-week or the bi-monthly. So basically you know, the big meeting, and then we'll have our smaller meetings. So I say all that to say, between Steve and I, we're going to delete all occurrences, and I'm going to send one new occurrence for the third Wednesday of each month. Same time, since we were already meeting on Wednesdays. Like I said, Steve and I just discussed it. There's no need to have too much duplication in meetings, and I'm sure we all have plenty on our calendars as is. So just when you see that come through, that is why I'm not going calendar happy. I just am trying to get it kind of cleaned up, since I've got a lot of duplication from when my two accounts merged back together. So we have some other stuff we can talk about at our next meeting. I think for now, I'd like to meet again in 2 weeks. That will technically be the week before the big meeting, but I think that will give us all a chance to kind of regroup, give an update, see how we're doing on Salesforce, templates, all those things, so that we're kind of all on the same page for that bigger meeting. And then after that first big meeting on February 1st, then we'll start the first Wednesday and third Wednesday. Other than that, I think everything else we have, we can hold off until 2 weeks from now. I think we've got plenty to work on between now and then, between templates and price books, and I need to get the current entries kind of cleaned up. So did anyone else have anything else they wanted to talk while we've got us all together here?
I have some things to go over with Steve, which would be a good time now, Steve. Okay. Yeah, it's just a 5-minute conversation. That's fine.
And Alan, I know you and I had talked about going over the IMS. I don't know if that's something you still want to do at this point, or if you have time later this week or later today, or what works best for you. Again, this meeting's gone a little longer than scheduled, so I'm pretty open the rest of the week, or I've got the time this afternoon, so. Oh, you're on mute.
Trying to do a little work on the site.
Fair enough.
If you can send me an invite maybe late in the day today, or something for a time later in the day,
Okay.
that would probably work better for me.
So like, would 3 o'clock your time work?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, I will send you an invite for 3 o'clock, and we can kind of go over some of that stuff this afternoon, just so that we're not putting it off.
Yep.
Okay, well, if that's everything,
Okay,
yeah, thanks everyone for your time. Obviously, if you need anything between now and then, let me know.